I'm not giving up, I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.
Hey everyone, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? Welcome back to another episode of Radical Christianity, the talk show that highlights God in action. I am Drew, your host, and I'm so glad you're joining us. Hey, I have some news, folks. Today, the last Thursday in February, is what has been known as the Collegiate Day of Prayer. That's right, thousands of churches, ministries, and individuals will be joining together in prayer for over 250 million students worldwide. Right? So if you're a student, know a student, or just care about our students, make sure to plan some time in your schedule today to pray for those learning on campuses across the nation and the globe. All right? It's not that big of a deal. Do it. And hey, they can really use our prayers. I mean, stress and anxiety, not enough time for studies, debt and finances. I mean, students are so broke they can't even pay tuition, let alone pay attention. One college graduate took the time to thank student loans for getting him through college, saying, "I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you." Not only that, textbook prices are through the roof. Recently, thieves stole $10,000 worth of textbooks from a campus bookstore. Don't worry, they were caught red-handed, and both books were returned. What's interesting about the Collegiate Day of Prayer is that it goes back to the 1800s. Apparently, procrastinating students have needed our prayers for hundreds of years. By 1823, every church denomination and every major collegiate campus in the country had adopted the last Thursday in February as the Collegiate Day of Prayer. The tradition continued until World War I, when it fell out of practice. In 2009, Executive Director Ty Lamb started up the tradition once again. The first year, 450 campuses signed up. This year, over 4,000. Can I get an amen? I mean, that's what I call good news. And I'd like to take a little time right now to say that prayer myself. God, we thank you for the students and the campuses across our nation. We ask that you bless those studying, that they might be filled with your grace, wisdom, and providence, that they would know you and be aware of your guidance and plan for their lives with the purpose and meaning in your glory. Amen. Hey, I've got a question for you. Why did the circle drop out of college? He already had 360 degrees, but that's nothing compared to the sun. That's like 1,000,000 degrees, right? Hey, and did you know that Spider-Man went to college, right? Yeah, he majored in web design. Hey, what do you call it when leafy greens get into college? Scalloped greens. Okay, everyone, that's enough humor for now. So tell me, are you rad for Christ? You fired up for Jesus? All right! Ladies and gentlemen, I have a special treat for you, so let's have a huge, big, warm welcome for Mr. Steve Hosey. Woo! Thanks for being here. Have a seat. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Steve, welcome to Radical Christianity.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. Again, it's a pleasure for me to come out and just kind of continue to build the kingdom and the ministry and spread the word. So another opportunity to do that. So appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to tell people about what God has in action. That's basically our slogan for this show. Mm-hmm. But that means a lot of different things. From how God's moving a person's life to Absolutely. All the way to the ministries doing big movements. So we'd like to cover everything.
Sure.
And but we normally handle things from testimony to mission. Okay. So please start us off with how you met Jesus.
Oh wow, okay, that's a good one. So I grew up in church. I grew up with a grandmother who was kind of a patriarch of the family, who led my mom and her kids to always be in church. So when I remember growing up in Oakland, California, it's kind of where I was born in Los Angeles, but raised in Oakland. There was a small church literally about a block and a half from where we lived. And so I remember as a kid always being in church. Sundays and summers, vacation Bible school and the works. And I tell people my first job was at the church, was taking over as the janitor when my older brother had that job and went off to college. And so, I grew up in the church, so I tell people I don't really honestly remember what year, what time that I said, hey, accept the Lord into my heart. But I will tell you that in 1996, fast forward some years, is when I truly made the commitment to get off the fence, so to speak, as like I tell people, and really, dig deep into my faith and to serve and make that full commitment. Was back in, say, March of 1996.
All right, well, you're coming up on an anniversary then.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And it's been, man, I tell you, when you get to a point in your life, like I did many years ago, where you just give the Lord the keys, right? Give him the keys. You understand right away that he's driving and he's making the moves. When you're willing to get from behind the steering wheel, let him steer you. And it was immediate in my life. It was immediate when I made that decision, said, Lord, whatever you want, I'm going to go sit in the back seat. You take me where you want me to go and what you want me to do. And it was immediate because he took me to places I would have never thought I would have gone or been a part of.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when you let God drive, you end up where you didn't expect you were going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's frightening. You know what I mean? Because there's times when I'm letting God drive, I think I'm about to crash.
Yeah. Well, in my day-to-day in the ministry, when I'm able to minister to young men and older men and disciple and mentor, I always say the toughest prayer is, Lord, your will be done, not mine. Because when you really think about that, right, you're giving up a lot. You're going, okay, Lord, your will, not mine. And it can be scary sometimes, but at the same time, also comforting, because we know we have a Lord that wants the best for us. And he's going to do what's best for us in the kingdom.
Yeah. I have to always watch myself when I'm talking to people one-on-one about that, because a lot of people, are not ready. They think that they've fully given everything, but they're not ready to really deny themselves. You know what I mean? Yeah. They just don't, for whatever reason. They want to make sure that they provide for their family in a very, very comfortable way, or you know what I mean. Like they want to make sure that these things that they have, that they don't lose, and these are, and the truth of the matter is they become their idols, and they don't realize it.
Yeah. Well, even in saying that, part of me recognizes that I still have to fight that battle.
Yeah, all of us do.
So
that's human, right?
and there's situations in my life where it's like, really? Do I really want to say this right now? Do I really want to say, Lord, your will, not mine? And that's the flesh that we have to beat back from time to time, So it's by no means something that I've conquered. I would like to think that I'm better at it, and I'm still a work in progress. But it's a tough one, and it can be a tough one. Like you said, a lot of people, you have to grow a little bit in your faith, be a little bit more of a mature believer to really grasp what that means in your life. And so, yeah, that can be a difficult thing.
Yeah, it's like one of those things that let's not get too into the weeds here.
Yeah.
But I have noticed that people who are comfortable, you know what I mean? Like they're like comfortable in life and all that kind of stuff. They may be in the church, they may be whatever. But it's like I'm like, okay, well, you realize that you're comfortable. It means the devil's not attacking you.
Yeah.
It's like there's something that's saying something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, because there's no better evidence that you're serving the Lord, that you're on track, and that you're being attacked by the devil.
Yeah, no, that's true. And as I've transitioned into ministry these last 5 years, into CBMC and serving on the board before I became the director. And then even before that, deciding to go back to school to further my education in ministry and my biblical studies. Oh, yeah, the enemy is going to come after you. He doesn't want that, doesn't want you to grow in your faith with the Lord. And you're right, you're out of that comfort zone. I mean, for me, being out of college for 30 years and deciding to go back because the Lord was tugging on my heart to be a part, to be equipped. And at the time, not knowing what for. But that was definitely out of my comfort level, man, and but at the end of the day, it was such a huge blessing because my natural bent, to be honest with you, is that if I had a little place up in the mountains that I can go with a couple of dogs and some good beef jerky and TV, and I'm good, man, but that's my natural bent, but the Lord has different plans.
Right. Yeah. It's really nice though that the occasion, and it's sometimes a rare occasion, that your plans and the Lord's plans sync. You know what I mean? And that's always a nice comfort zone. You know what I mean? But the problem is that never lasts for long. You know what I mean? You can, because the Lord will protect you and He'll look out for you. He'll make sure you're fed. He'll protect His interests that you're serving.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But the devil come at you.
No, you're right. And I think there's this interesting point you made there, because I do think that there sometimes can be those intersections where there's things that we want, and there's things that the Lord will allow us to have, and we think that it's for us, and it's really not. It's for His building and His kingdom, and we just think that we're getting what we want, but it's really what He wants, because He's got a bigger plan.
Right.
And so there is times in our lives where those things intersect, and it's interesting because we get all happy and excited, and we say, "Hey, thank you, Lord. That's great." And then later on, we find out, man, that was all about it was you, man. That was a good one, and how you have enabled us to go through different seasons in our life to be better servants.
Right. Yes. So let's talk about the CBMC.
Sure.
All right. So you just started being the head of CBMC for this area recently, like a year or two ago?
So actually, I took over the area director role in January of 20. Oh boy, let me make sure I get this right. 22, 23, 24. Yes, 22. I had to make sure, because I came on staff in July of 21 and took over when our previous area director, Tom Summers, retired. So I took over full time January of 22. And it's been quite the journey. It has been, again, one of those things where when you give the keys to the Lord, He says, okay, well, let's go. And you enjoy the ride. You enjoy being, part of the team. And growing up in sports, I'm a big team guy, so I understand the concept. I understand what that means. I understand my role. And the more He illuminates this role to me, and then even sometimes change it and adjust, and you got to be on the fly, and it's pretty awesome. And because when we're on His plan, He brings joy, not happiness. He brings true joy to the things that we do when we're on His plan.
Yeah. So there's a lot of men's ministries, in this area. There's a lot.
Sure, yeah.
And so what would you say makes this men's ministry different than?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And I get that question a lot. And I think for me, if I had to make it as simple as possible, I think the biggest difference that you'll see with our ministry, CBMC, Christian Businessmen's Connection, is that we do leave some space for the business, the B in the CBMC. And let's talk about business. Let's talk about what that looks like with your Christian hat on. We don't want you to take that off. We want you to conduct yourself as a kingdom man or woman, right? The way the Lord would want you to honor everything that you're doing in your business as you would, like you were, your family man, or at home, or at your church. And so we get a chance that when we meet together, we fellowship. We get a chance to go through Scripture and biblical principles, but we get a chance to apply that and really talk about what does that look like in the workplace. I mean, we're talking about being good stewards. What does that look like? Okay, well, we need to be a good steward. We can't just spend. We got to look at our budget more clearly and what we're doing in the business. Those are not separate things. Being a good steward is not separate from running a business and being accountable, especially if you have employees and shareholders.
In fact, it's got to be more challenging because you're competing against businesses that don't have to follow the same ethical standards. And
we have to allow a certain amount of trust in the Lord and not our own understanding on how we're doing the business to say, hey, Lord, I'm not going to cut these corners, because if I cut this corner, hey, I can do really well and I can make some money, and that'll be, hey, everybody's going to be like, great. But that's not what the Lord calls us to do. He calls us to do what's right, to be salt and light, and to conduct our business in a way and let the results come to Him. And He'll bless what you're doing. And I've had businessmen in this community who've had a chance to come in and speak with our groups and talk about those very things. Like, hey, I've been very, very successful, but I did it the right way. I honored the Lord. Had I cut corners, I would have been off the chart. But that's not what the Lord wanted from me, and I needed to honor Him. And I think that is something that a lot of business men and women need to consider in our community.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's like, if I don't know how much of this show you've watched, but I go all over the place when it comes to like stuff like this, because there are some people that are walking the walk with Jesus first, you know what I mean, and and doing really well in business, and they are doing everything they can to serve the Lord and be a good businessman.
Yes, absolutely.
Then there are others that are more focused on business,
Sure.
and then they come along with God to say, "Hey, God, help me with my business."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I'm sure that you understand how fundraising works. I mean, it's like I've talked to people who who are just like so just money, and I'm like, yeah, but are you giving? Okay, so you're making this money, but how much of that are you actually spreading around the kingdom? It's like, are you saying this is mine and you get yours? Or are you saying, hey, this is God's? You know what I mean?
Well, that's where the stewardship comes in, right? And that's where we need to stay on top of the businessmen in our community to understand that they are stewards of the things that they have and the businesses that they run and the profits that they make. Bible doesn't teach us that profits are bad. We can use these things that we do to glorify the kingdom and to build the kingdom and to help other believers out. It's just a matter of understanding and recognizing, like you said, it's not me. It's for the kingdom. It's how I can honor the Lord and how am I being a good steward with the things He's blessed me to have, with those talents, gifts, abilities, in order to make the money that I'm making.
Right.
So,
yeah. That's I find that to be really important. And I'm definitely not going to drop any names, but I've had some interactions in this town where I was just disappointed. I was all like, just wow, you know what I mean? Because I thought for sure these people were like mentally focused on trying to do everything they could for God in the community. And really, it's even the stuff that they would do with churches and everything else. Their mindset is all, well, how can I turn this into more money?
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, and I like to just think of it as, people who have professing to be Christians and be in the kingdom, right? Sometimes maybe that maturity level is not there in that particular aspect of their lives. They haven't really made the coalition possibly of what that means on a bigger level and a kingdom level and how they should be directing their funds or how the Lord would direct them to use their funds. So, I think, there's always going to be room to grow for those guys.
Yeah, for those guys, that's kind of where I kind of like go back to where like their life is just, everything's a little too easy for them. And so the devil's not coming at them. So they don't feel like they need God. You know what I mean? In the same way, they just want God to bless them, but they don't, they're not like turning to God. They're not falling on their knees. They're not having those moments where they're like, "Oh, God, I can't take it." You know what I mean? Which those moments are necessary for growth.
Yeah, no doubt. When we are pruned, we are disciplined. That's when we need to draw closer to the Lord. That's why He allows these challenges and things like that. So it's unfortunate that when we get pruned and disciplined in those areas that we don't want it, we kind of shy away instead of pressing in. And I like to tell guys that nobody wakes up in the morning and go, "Okay, Lord, bring the pain today. What do you got for me today so that I can grow and learn?" We just don't have that mindset.
Maybe we should.
Well,
maybe maybe should that be our opening statement in our prayer? God, bring the pain.
Yeah, because that's when we learn. We learn through those.
That's fear, though. That's afraid just to ask God to like bring it on. That's a fear statement right there.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. But it's what He uses to draw us closer to Him. That pruning, right? Nobody likes to be pruned, but it happens by sometimes our mistakes or our accord, and then sometimes it is the enemy that we allow to take us down paths that we should not be taking.
Yeah.
So,
well, one thing I know for sure is that if you show true obedience to God, you know what I mean, the end result will be His glory.
Yes.
It could be a very painful course. It could be a very confusing course, but if you just stay obedient, and a lot of people misunderstand what obedience is, because like. It's one of the things that I talk about on this show a lot. Is it's not about the sin It's about the having your eyes on Jesus. You know what I mean? Like if you put your eyes on Jesus, you know, the stuff that's not glorifying God will fall away. You know what I mean? Not necessarily all of it. I mean, because we're all sinners, we can't. None of us are perfect. But you know, but for people who spend too much time focused on their sin, that sin becomes their idol.
Yeah, no doubt. It consumes them too much, and that's not what the Lord wants, right? The enemy wouldn't want us to dwell on those things, but not the Lord. He wants to free us from those things and bring us healing through that. So, you know, there was a thought I was just thinking as you were talking. Let me see if I can get that thought back right here, real quick. Oh man, it kind of escapes me, but no, you know, you're absolutely right, man. You know, we have to be willing to do those things. We have to be willing to submit and say, hey, man, you know, I'm sorry, I messed up, and Lord, how can I get back? And obedience is absolutely paramount. I'm a big guy on obedience. I know the Bible teaches us that He desires our obedience more than our sacrifice, and so I try to instill that in my family, my kids, my you know, the people that I meet with in the ministry. So that's a big one. That's really a big one. So
what do you tell? This is another thing I've seen. And I'm not going to call anybody out or accuse anybody directly, but what do you think about the people who, you know, will say that, you know, let me pray about it, and they're not really listening to what God says. They're listening to how that affects their business or their bottom line or that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? You know, I mean, it's like maybe they are praying, but they're not listening for God to respond. You know, they're getting their answers from a different source.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the surface, the phrase, "Hey, let me pray about it." There's nothing wrong with that, right? And our only hopes is that they're being sincere, right, and that they really are seeking the Lord the way they say they're going to seek the Lord. And so, I mean, I have no qualms with someone telling me, "Hey, let me pray about that." Hey, great, respect it. Need to go back, talk to my wife, talk to the family, especially major decisions, and you know, and if need be, fast and pray. I mean, I had a situation last month where, boy, there's some things that really need to be done. I had to go back and pray about it, and I fasted and prayed over the weekend, and the Lord gave me an answer, and it was amazing. So, you know, I would hope that they would do those things, but I get it. I understand. There's some people, again, and I think that goes back to immaturity.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, human weakness, human failure. Weakness, you know what I mean? It's like there's a reason why we need Jesus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
You know, just because somebody's successful in business doesn't mean that they got God straight. You know what I mean? Just so you know, usually the ones that have God straight the most are the ones that are not the ones that are suffering the most. You know? Yeah. I mean, look at, like, you want an example? I mean, look at Jesus. You know, who had God straight better than Jesus, who is the Son of God? You know what I mean? Talk about some suffering.
Well, I always like to tell people when it comes to Jesus, you know, and I'm a baseball guy, right, in sports, and so I always have my baseball analogy. So I tell people, look, there's only one person that batted 1,000, and that's Jesus. So don't think you're going to walk around here and bat 1,000. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. And so you have to have humility. You have to be willing to say, I'm sorry, I messed up, and submit to the Lord. He's always going to have his hand down and say, okay, take you back. That's the kind of Lord that we serve. His love for us, we can't fathom or imagine. And he's, you know, all these things that we do and mistakes we make, and yet when we repent and turn and go to him, he's still like, come on, let's go. Let's get back at it. And so, yeah, we have to learn how to deal with that as Christians, that failure. I know my time in baseball taught me how to deal with failure, right? You fail 7 out of 10 times and they say, hey, you're greatest. I'm like, really? I don't really feel like it, but and that's a lot in our Christian walk, because we're going to fail. Yeah. You know, we're going to make mistakes.
Right. You know, and you know, its glory is not on us; it's on God.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely
what I mean?
has to be at all times.
So that's you know, if the glory falls on you, odds are it's not going to be working out. You know.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That those kind of things make me kind of shudder a little bit. You know, wanting to take glory from the Lord. It's just not something. I don't know. I can't fathom that. And I think people do it sometimes unconsciously. I mean, I would hate to think that people would do that. Like, hey, no, I'm bigger or better than the Lord. I don't think you can really truly call yourself a follower of Christ when you say those type of things.
I don't know if people actually say I'm bigger or better than the Lord, but it's like they don't go out and just announce it. It's more kind of like how they approach things.
Yeah.
You know, they'll brag on something that happened in their life. Like, you know, it's like, oh, look at this and this and this and that and this, and you know, and it's not like, oh, look what God did. You know, it's more like, look what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Well, you know, I think this is a good point, and I think part of that is because we have too short of a memory. Right?
Oh,
we have too short of a memory, because if we really thought about the times when we prayed to the Lord, that we asked for things, and he delivered, and he delivered, and he delivered. And we wrote it down, and we wrote it down, and we wrote it down. And I'd say about that 45th, 56th time, we go, oh, man, Lord, what are you doing? You can't do that. And you forget to open up the journal and go, oh, wow, yeah, man, you were there, and you did that. Oh, wow, yeah, I forgot about that one. You know, we have such short memories, and because I guarantee you, he's come through way more than he hasn't for us, and the times that he hasn't probably was really bad for us, or he's saying, wait.
Right, yeah. So back to the CBMC.
Yes.
What would you say was 3 core things that you try to accomplish with this ministry?
Oh, good, great. So number one, I think getting men to be discipled, right? Getting men to be discipled, come along someone else, being a discipler and being discipled. Like our ministry is built off of discipleship. That's what we are the core of what we do. And through that discipleship, then we're able to talk to businessmen about the ethics of how they do their business and how they can honor God in the workplace. Guys spend more time in the workplace than anywhere else. And so how can we bring them the gospel? How can we disciple them? So discipling would be right there, how to run your business ethically, and getting guys connected, you know, not letting them be by themselves, giving them a place that they can connect, that they can glean wisdom from other businessmen in the community that's like-minded, that's going to talk to them about biblical principles, right? Not how to skirt the system, not how to get over, not how to, you know, just crush somebody on the deal where it's not fair or God honoring, and that those principles work. They work, and there's plenty of men in our community that have succeeded by doing that. So discipling, getting men connected, and teaching them the biblical principles about, you know, honoring God through their work.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, so if you were to tell guys who are interested in, because CBMC is not just Fresno, it's national.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So if they're trying to find their local CNBC, what would you tell them? Hey, this is why you need to check it out.
Yeah, well, first of all, you can find us on our web. We have a web page. It's fresno.cbmc.com. We are national. As a matter of fact, I just came back from a conference in Florida last week where we had our Summit by the Sea, and we had divisions and branches from all over the country. And so you can find us there. You can find us on our Facebook page, CBMC Fresno. You can find us on LinkedIn, same thing, CBMC Fresno or Fresno CBMC. Any combination of those, right, you'll find us. And we try to have quarterly gatherings, whether it's a breakfast or a lunch. Our next one's going to be on March the 20th. We're going to have a luncheon. And it's a simple, usually we'll have a topic and a speaker. This time we're just going to have straight up networking and a time to network and to fellowship and talk about the ministry and how people can get connected and plugged in with the different groups that we have. Mm-hmm. So we have that. We have a couple of events. We have a golf tournament in April, a dinner function in August. And then in between there, it's our group meetings, whether it's one-on-one Timothy meetings, Operation Timothy. We have a group Timothy that meets as well. We have what we call trusted advisors. It's kind of our older, more seasoned business professionals who are Christ believers that want to glean from one another on how to do a better job at what they're doing. And then we have our young professionals, which is our 40 and under group that we get together. And we're meeting tonight, as a matter of fact. Tonight we're meeting with our young professionals. So that's going to be awesome. I love that time together. And then besides those programs, we have guys in the organization who have been trained in leadership coaching. Coaching has become big in a big industry because there's people that they recognize that don't need to always be told the answers.
Now, is Bruce Hinman involved with that? Because he's like a big leadership.
The name's not familiar right now.
Really? Yeah?
Not familiar. Maybe if he's been involved with CBMC prior to me coming aboard. I met a guy this morning, as a matter of fact, at a men's breakfast. Said, hey, I used to be a part of CBMC, but I haven't been around in a while. And I'm like, hey, we'll come out next month. We're having a luncheon. So there's a lot of guys in the community that's been involved over the years because we've had such great leadership over the years with CBMC. And now we're just continuing to do the same with just more access points, if you want to call it. You know, we're still discipling, but we have just different ways that we can do that. And also a C3 Bible study. I forgot about that.
C3 Bible study.
Yeah, so I have a board member right now that leads that. And those guys, that's more of a kind of a traditional Bible study. But again, they still get an opportunity to talk about what's going on in the marketplace. That happens every other week on a Monday morning. On Monday, I think it's Monday afternoons or Monday evenings every 2 weeks. So Yeah, you can.
Somewhere on Monday.
Yeah, somewhere on Monday.
Monday
yeah,
afternoon,
yes.
evening, one of those.
Since I'm not the one actually doing it, one of my other guys doing it, sometimes it gets kind of jumbled in there. But yeah, like I said, just different ways, man. And we want to provide that outlet for men to do that and not be afraid to go, yeah, I'm a believer in Christ. That's right. And we have high standards on how we do our business. And we're going to treat you fairly and ethically because we want to honor the Lord with what he's provided for us. We're not trying to cheat you. We want to be fair. It's okay to make a profit. I think people hear that, oh, you're a Christian, now you have to give me, a 70% discount. And it's like, no, not really. I still have, a mortgage and family to feed and groceries, and I want to honor the Lord. If you have a good deal and I have a good deal, that's fair. We honor the Lord. Great time. I don't want to walk away going, oh man, I really got that dude, on a 90, 95.5 deal. It's like, that's who's that honoring? No one. And at the same token, I wouldn't want to go in there and buy something from someone and like I'm just stealing it and really just, browbeat them so much that they feel guilted into selling me something and they don't make a profit. Who does that benefit? No one. Yeah. So, we need to be fair in how we conduct ourselves. And businessmen are no different. It's just letting them know that you don't have to take off your Christian hat to be a businessman. Yes. And to treat people fairly.
That is accurate. I actually made a comment that ended up into somebody trying to start a fight with me about exploitation in marketing. Because that's what I do for a living is marketing. That's how I make my money, which is a very, very hard industry to be ethical in. Just so you know. But it's like this guy tried to bait me on an ad with something that was unethical. Bait and switch is it's like, like they make this thing, so they make it sound like they're offering something that they're not. Even if they don't actually say that, they just kind of phrase it and frame it in a way that seems like something else. And then you click the ad, and then you give your information. Now they have your email, your contact information. You know what I mean? Something that they can actually sell for $1 somewhere. You know what I mean? Sure. And but then they're also So anyway, homeboy was like trying to. He was asking me what I thought of his ad because I basically once I figured out what he was up to, I just told him I wasn't really interested. It's like I'm not really. It's not, and then he started like trying to come at me because he's like, well, what do you think of the ad? And I'm all like, I thought it was kind of exploitive. Yeah. And then he started like getting offended and like all this kind of stuff. And obviously he wasn't a Christian. So I was just kind of like, I was just kind of like not like coming at I was trying to not be judgy. You know what I mean? So I was just kind of like, it's like I'm not a very big fan of exploitation of our fellow man. I'm not really, I think ethical behavior is important. It's like I don't really approve of people who, decide to do business where they're just trying to trick somebody to get something out of them. You know what I mean? And he's all like, well, the power company and the dentist company is no different than this. Wow. And I'm like, well, look at the power company. I mean, I'm like, you got the electric company who is, basically raking people over the coals. They're lining pockets of political advocates so that they can, basically charge exorbitant rates to people at some different tiers. You know what I mean? It's like completely unfair. And you know what I mean? That's an example. So you're saying you're like these guys?
Yeah, no, and again, that's what Christian businessmen. That's what we teach our guys, right? That you're not operating on the world system. You're not operating like the world says you have to operate and follow that lead. Here's where our principles come from. Here's what the Bible teaches us. Here's how we are fair. Here's how we're ethical. Here's how we work hard, right? We should have more expectations out of one another than people who don't follow the Lord, right? Because we're called to be salt and light. We're not called to be average. We're called to be salt and light and to use everything to the best of our abilities. Yeah. And so
and I think we also are called to do one step further, because if we just focus on our business and doing our business ethically, that is just half of what we're called to do. You know what I mean?
Oh, well, it's all about the kingdom. Man.
Yeah, we're called to like take what we're doing and also share that with the church body, the kingdom of God on earth. You know what I mean? Whether it is we're helping another person up or we're trying to build something, it's like it's like really if we call ourselves Christian businessmen, you know what I mean, and we're doing business and we're making a significant profit, we got to really remember that's God's money.
Oh, absolutely. It's all, again, it goes back to the stewardship principle, right? And leaving our believer hat on, our Christian hat on, our follower of the Lord hat, that stays on. And it doesn't say anywhere in the Bible that, oh yeah, well, if you run a business, you don't have to listen to what I'm saying here. That's not part of it, right? Yeah. So you're absolutely right. And if we don't have those principles grounded in us and know that they are applicable to what we do in the business world, then yeah, we're gonna have some shortcomings.
Yeah. Well, I don't wish any businessmen bad luck. I really don't. I hope that all your businesses go really, 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 really good. I just hope that what you do with those profits and success is glorifying to God a lot more than it's glorifying to you. So, and you know what? Thank you for coming on the show and sitting down and visiting with us. We have a saying here. It's like, you're definitely rad for Christ. You're definitely fired up for Jesus, and we'd love to see that, man. God bless you.
No, thank you, man. I appreciate the opportunity, man. And it's like I said, it's been a journey. I love what I do with CBMC. I love being able to wear my faith on my sleeve, so to speak. People have known me in the community for a long time, and they say, hey, what are you up to now? So you don't have to wonder. It's right there. If I'm not building the kingdom, I'm not really living. So that's
awesome.
What we're doing.
That's fantastic. Cool. Yeah. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you.
Housekeeping time. Yes, housekeeping is the time when I sit here and talk to you about how Radical Christianity operates off of donations. We are not able to sustain forever without some help from our viewers like you. So if you need what we're presenting here, that's fantastic. We could use your help too, but maybe there's somebody else that needs it, that you see that they are going to, you see the need that we can fill, right? So whatever that is, whatever God's saying, we're not here to try to talk you into giving us money. I'm not one of those televangelists that just says, you got to give money or you're going to hell. That's not my style, right? So I just kind of want to reach out to you and tell you that we do need your money. Not all of your money. Seriously, you need your money too, right? These are tough times, but what we're doing here is we're trying to help people find Jesus. We're trying to help people to establish a better relationship with their Creator. And that is a beautiful thing that we all need, and we could really use your help. So if you have $5, $10, $15 that you can share with us, it would be extremely helpful. If you could do more, that would be even greater. All you got to do is go to our website, radforchrist.com. That's RAD, Christ.com, and go to the navigation at the top. There's a little donate link there. Click that donation link, and then it'll take you to the Mr. E Christian Media donation page. Now, Mr. E Christian Media is the nonprofit that we operate within. It's a 501c3. That means your donation will be fully tax deductible. And you just go to the form, drop down Radical Christianity from the list, and then whatever number God has put on your heart to put there and send to us will be extremely, extremely, extremely appreciated. And it'll be a great blessing for us. If you want to donate to something else on that list, that would be great too. Also, you can just do the general fund, and then the funds will go where they're needed the most. But if you want to focus on this show, you select this show from that list, and every penny that you donate will go to keeping this show in full operation. With that said, you don't have money to give, you can still help us out. You can share us on social media, tell a friend, tell your pastor, tell people at your church. Help us raise awareness of the show. So share us on social media, whatever it is that you feel like you can do. And if you feel like you can't do any of that, there's still something you can do, and that is pray for us. You can fully get on your knees and say a little prayer to help us reach the people that need Jesus. All right. And if you do that kind of stuff, we're so grateful. That's just the kind of thing that we really appreciate here. And with all that said, I just want you to know that we're grateful for you. Thank you so much for watching. Now, on with the show. Ladies and gentlemen, so excited. We have returning guests. They have not appeared together, but we now have them together. So let's have a huge warm welcome for Kay and Frank Jackson. Woo! Hello. Kay, sit down, please. Welcome back to Radical Christianity. This is a special treat. You both kind of regular guests, but to have you here at the same time is the first for us. So,
yeah, it's nice to be back and visiting with you again.
Yeah.
I think we compete for airtime when we're together, finish each other's sentences and continue on.
Yeah, well, that's what married people do, right? You know, if you don't finish each other's sentences, you're finishing each other's dinner. You know?
Yeah.
So, everybody's heard your guys' testimony already because you've been previous guests. So, but we're here to talk about a mission trip that you guys went on, right? So, Cambodia?
Yeah, Cambodia and Singapore. We went on there last September. We had an opportunity to partner with the ministry. Some pastors we met from Southern California invited us to go over and bring the gospel to Cambodia, which is a communist nation, and it's closed to the gospel as far as being okay, but the Lord has a window of opportunity to go over and get the gospel shared.
Now, so Cambodia is managed by China, right?
Yeah, the tentacles of China are there. When we flew in, and it had been a while since I had been over to Southeast Asia, they had just opened up in Siem Reap a brand new airport. Massive airport, state-of-the-art, everything.
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
It was beautiful, and I was pretty surprised with all of the technology that was in place in this little city. None of Asian cities are really little, but in the city of Siem Reap, that everything was down to facial recognition. I mean, they knew you were landing, they knew everything that was going on, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, the monitoring of people has increased.
And that's eventually going to be everywhere, I imagine. But one of the things that blows my mind is I haven't actually physically been there, but I have I've watched a lot of videos of people who go and do travel stuff, and Singapore is like this super advanced, over the top, beautiful place.
Yes.
That has extreme poverty.
Yeah.
It's like how are we gonna be a world where we have super advanced stuff and extreme poverty at the same time?
Yeah, and that's even more evident in Cambodia, where Singapore, it's a financial hub. I mean, that was fascinating in its own self.
Right.
Yeah, when we were in Cambodia, went to a dump city where people lived in the dump and fed them and witnessed to them, and it was one of the driver. It really affected him because he lived in that city, but he had never seen this, and it was sad.
Yeah, we had a conversation, Drew, that led us into a little bit about Cambodia, and we were talking about that dump city and about how the people who live there, they get probably 90% of what they need to survive off of the rubbish that comes in, and they're sifting and sorting, and their homes are right there, and it gives you a pause and think. He mentioned our driver, Whatnot, and I asked him what he was feeling. He was a Christian man, and he said, we were created by the same God. We live under the same sun. I've never seen people live like this. And he was from Cambodia. Mm-hmm. And I stood there and I reflected, and I thought of all the other places that we had been and all the other nations that I've been. They have the same circumstance. And then I, took it a step back even further, because here just in the Fresno Clovis area, you drive 41, you see these little lean-tos and little shanties along the freeway, or you can go to Tent City in Fresno and you see that. So that oppression is worldwide. It's just not unique to one place.
Right.
And that just shows that the gospel is a worldwide thing. It's not to make people West, it's to make people kingdom-minded so that they can get pulled up and out of their poverty, as you were talking.
Right.
Because the freedom begins in the heart, and then it manifests on the outward.
Yeah, the thing about poverty that drives me the most crazy is that it kind of all goes back to a degree of selfishness, which kind of breaks my heart, because there's plenty of money and stuff and food to go around and feed the whole world. There's plenty. I mean, we have more than enough to feed the entire world.
Absolutely.
We have more than enough to clothe the entire world. We have enough energy to power the entire world. We have enough everything for the whole world. But there are just some individuals, that are happy with taking as much as they can and not sharing.
Yeah, this is true.
Which is, a lot of them aren't Christians. Some of them claim to be, but I see that hoarding of resources and hoarding of capital as definitely not a Jesus thing at all.
Yeah, no, the capital has to go out. But one of my the sayings that people say, you can go out and you can feed the poor, but if you don't teach them how to survive in their circumstances and how to prosper with where they're at, and prosperity, that's a wide word right there, because prosperity in the middle of Africa can be having a bicycle. Doesn't mean you're having a McLaren or a Lamborghini or a Maserati. It can be a bicycle or two, and then you're really prosperous. But you have to teach the people how to grow, how to fish. What is that saying? If you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but if you teach him to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime.
Correct, yeah.
And so we did bring food to the dump city. Frank went out and delivered food to the people.
Yeah, we had this one guy who was Australian, and he said, "Are you guys just going to stand here?" He didn't think we'd go in there, but we went right in there.
Yeah,
so
he's an Australian
good
man.
Guy.
Yeah, he has been over there for, I think it was 8 years already, and he was helping build the school. And he, his gifts and talents and ability, he has a heart of compassion. So where he was putting in he was just a fine woodworker. So he was building the desks and the tables and the cupboards and everything that went into the school. And I thought, my gosh. The quality of what he was bringing there, you could see it was a labor of love, that it wasn't, I'm just hammering together some boards and that's what they're going to be on.
It was probably being done with minimal capital necessary. You know what I mean?
They did have some foreign churches that had invested in it and what they saw.
But it's not like it's costing billions of dollars or anything.
No.
You know what I mean?
And taking 50 years to get put up.
Yeah. No, I have the hardest time with this situation, not just because, of trying to fundraise for my ministry, but that's kind of where I got, because I've been trying to fundraise for ministries, where I got my education on how bad the problem really was. But the heart for serving is real important, and I always wonder, how do you get through to the really wealthy businessmen who, will give a little bit of money to their church, you know what I mean? And then they expect their church to do all the ministry, or, you know what I mean? They'll give to a foundation, and they expect that foundation to do everything. And, there's so much out there in money-wise that it seems like we could be a little bit more strategic on like money use, but I don't know. Human error gets in the way. The enemy gets in the way.
Another thing with churches today, praise God, there's for the churches, but it's too much spectators. Everybody needs to go and share Jesus, not just go there and sit there on Sunday. Like this one preacher one time, he said, "Think about reading the Bible like eating. If you're just eating on Sunday, you're not very hungry." Ooh, I need to read the Bible more.
Yeah, keep feeding yourself. But I think that part of that has to do with the way the world conditions us. It's you work. Where God's kingdom isn't that way. God's kingdom is you are a hose or you are a funnel. Every resource that's put into your time, your talents, your abilities is needing to be pushed through to bring glory back to God. And if they understand that, there's been so many scams, particularly running through the church, because we believe the best in people.
Right.
And so we're not looking to be scammed. We're not looking to be hurt. We're looking to believe the best in people and partner with people. And so when you bring something in front of someone, it's like, what do you want? And it's not necessarily what we want. One when I started missions, oh gosh, a few years ago now, I had a friend who was actually a missionary in Peru at the time, and we were having this conversation about funding. And she said they just really need to understand is they're not partnering with you, they're partnering with God to get something done. Whether it's here in California or whether it's in a foreign nation, across the border in Mexico, or if it is over in Southeast Asia or the middle of Africa, God is needing people, one, who are willing to go, and then two, for those who don't feel that call necessarily to be in nation, they can partner with you to send you there.
Yeah, the thing that I have a hard time wrapping my, because I don't do cross the seas ministry as much as you guys did. I did Mexico and stuff like that in high school. I don't really have the ability to just drop everything and leave town. If God wanted that, he'd make it a possibility, I'm sure. So he's using me in other ways, but I look at that and I'm like, okay, so there are a lot of people who are, who will go and do this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? They'll go and they'll dedicate their time and all that. And then there's, people that'll put in resources and the cost to get those people there and house them and while they're there and all that kind of stuff. And then there's usually somebody who runs a church that's out there that they're working with. And, I'm just wondering, in some cases, I'm sure it's a mixed bag of nuts. Like sometimes it's probably like, hey, you know what? This is just a big fluff piece that we're just kind of, humoring our rich white selves, thinking that, oh, look how great we are because we're going to this underserved community in another nation, and we're so great because we're telling them Jesus and we're doing this, and look how horrible they are. Look how horrible things are for them. And they appreciate it so much. Look, there's like thousands of them that show up, and And I look at that and I'm like, okay, I can see how that is okay, but then but you look at the bigger picture. You pull back and look at centuries of this at this point. You know what I mean? We have so many years from where it's there's been outreach ministries like that since there's been a United States. You know what I mean? So there's I wonder if there's a different approach or a way to evaluate it differently, because it's like like telling people about Jesus is great. It's so important. You know what I mean? But we're not there to follow up.
That's where you have churches that are on the ground that you hook up and link up and go and provide them with that hookup. And then there's follow-up. The ministry in Cambodia we're working with, they had been established in there doing work, and then COVID hit. And they were under complete lockdown. So last year was the first year that the nation opened up. Really, it's a tourism industry in Cambodia. So the industry was hit. The hospitality was just dead. But they went back and they had churches and individuals that they're hooked up with to be able to get people rooted and grounded. So you're right. It's not just a hit and run. You go in, you drop, you feel good, you leave. They're going back again, and we will be going back this fall to continue the ministry that we started with them. There's some things that not only are there deposits there in the country for the people, but there's withdrawals that God is trying to get something to your heart. It's not about how good you can be. It's about the life-transforming part of the gospel. It says it in Philemon, that in the participation of the sharing of your faith, do you come to identify everything that's good that is yours in Christ Jesus?
And then we're at this one lady's house, and she asked for a prayer because she had plastic on her roof, and the plastic was gone, and it rains there a lot. And so the ministry, One Hope Missions, they bought her a house. It was probably several $1,000s. It was more like a barn. But it's better than plastic on the
But when they went to get the roof, they were going to put the roof on, and they went to get the roof, and they talked about the size of the house, and lost in translation was, we want to put the roof on, but rather it came out, we're going to build her a new house. And so, but again, a home building over there isn't anything like it is here.
It's just a walls and a roof.
Right,
Floor.
and there's not permits necessary.
No, yeah,
So that
yeah,
changes
I was gonna
everything.
say, no permits.
All the extra permission stuff costs a lot here. But the thing that I see a lot is like there's like I get that, like, you know, people doing missions work, it changes their lives
yeah,
in a lot
absolutely.
of, like, you know. But I'll look at, like, okay, Africa as an example, that there are a lot of Muslim organizations coming in and putting money into the people, right, to win them to their religion.
Conditional.
You know what I mean? Well,
yeah, it is.
So,
a lot of what's being put in is conditional.
Well, yeah.
Being on the ground and working over there were organizations that would come in and it's a conditional. You know, the gospel's free. All the outreach, the feeding the people, the clothing the people, providing school documents or school supplies or anything that they need, it's not conditional. Meaning that we're coming in the name of the Lord, who's the one that is the source. We're a channel to bring whatever it is over there.
Yeah.
So they don't get their eyes on you, that they keep their eyes on the Lord. But it's never tied to receiving the gospel.
Right. Well, you know, the most, you know, I mean, obviously China also spends a lot of money in,
Yes.
in you know, and so it's like what I see happening is the investment in the nation, right, is having a bigger effect, forced or not forced. I mean, because I think that there's, you know, these people like, oh, well, it's my only opportunity, you know, that would be, you know, if it's like, well, what are they doing there? Are as, you know, if we're just going to go and, you know, I mean, God does great things.
Absolutely.
But we can't just expect God to, you know, I mean, he can make something out of nothing, but we can't expect him to. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering why we don't do, like, you know, why there aren't businesses who can actually, you know, take the money that they make here, right? And then they're like, okay, well, we're trying to force this square peg in a round hole here, trying to make more money here, when there's opportunity for the gospel, you know, through businesses. I mean, like, you could put Christian schools, you could put Christian businesses where maybe you're not forcing someone to be a Christian, but they come and they work for you and they're getting God messaging around you. And there's no laws or anything saying that you can't do that there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, it's not like they have the, you know, that whole, like, well, you can't have Jesus in school, or, you know what I mean? You gotta keep it out of the workplace. You know, it's like, no, it's like we have this huge opportunity.
There's a window right now. It's pretty wide open over there.
Yeah.
Tell them we were in the schools.
Yeah, we went to schools and, you know, preached in the schools.
Yeah, and part of it was, so, you know, you talk about being a blessing and going out. So we went to one of the schools, and afterwards, when the schools let out, they have little vendors, little food carts, if you may. And one of them was, two of them were ice cream. And so we had about 300 children there, and then they had the little carts with the little vendors that came up, and what did they do with that?
Yeah, and then One Hope Missions, they bought all their ice cream and gave it to kids.
Nice.
So we had
So-
like a kid stampede.
Yeah, he got caught in that kid stampede. And then in another area, they have little businesses that are starting. So we went and we visited one so they could show us their business, and it was a little, you know, side restaurant. And I was trying to remember what the name of it was. They made these little palm fruit cakes, which is like a little steamed cake, which was really delicious and had a little coconut syrup on top. And so they helped them start their little business in their little village. It was outside of Siem Reap, so it was in a little village. And so we ate that, and they were really tasty. They were really good. And then they were selling noodles and soup, and so they were showing us their business and how they were trying to, you know, with prosperity. But then the biblical principle came into play. So we're going to teach them from the natural standpoint how to run a business, but then there's the spiritual standpoint, which is the sowing and reaping. And so with One Hope Missions, we purchased 50 cakes, but not for us. So we told them we're going to purchase these 50 cakes, so the next 50 people who stop by, you go and give this. And it sparked a conversation with the 50 people who stopped by. Nobody gives me anything for free. Why are you doing this? And they were able to share the gospel. And 14 people received, just off of that one small little act, that they could say, hey, taste and see that the Lord is good. Come and partake in this and then see. And then they start there with the church that is in the village. Then they have a little Bible study. I think in America we get so busy that some of that doesn't take place. I know with our outreach here in Fresno, we do give churches. We give a list of good churches out saying, hey, this is where we go, but this isn't necessarily where your gifts and talents and abilities need to be used. So here's a list of churches that we've sat in, listened to, made sure they're doctrinally sound, and that they would be good for the spiritual growth, and let the individual say, okay, these are my choices now. Which one is the Lord wanting them to go to?
Yeah, I just I guess where my mind is like, you know, I feel like, you know, we as a Christian body, you know what I mean, we should start shifting our thoughts to laying groundwork that is long term.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So like if we, you know, if there was like a town, you know what I mean, that was built all on Christian businesses, you know what I mean. And, you know, and it's like, you know, even if it was just a foreign investor who came in and like you said, okay, these, you know, let's this is the policy, everything's going to be Christian here, you know, we're going to stop for prayer, we're going to, you know, we're going to do these things that they don't have to participate. You know what I mean? Because we're going to play everybody, but in fact, we're trying to get people who are not Christians to come in so they can become Christians. You know what I mean? But then you have this, and then they're encouraged to talk about Jesus, you know, as they learn about Jesus while they're working in their job, making money. You know what I mean? So they're going to be loyal to the person that's helping them survive and feed their family, right? So they develop this loyalty thing, and at the same time, they are learning what Jesus is really about. So it's not like, hey, we're loyal to our boss because he's our God. No, it's like we're loyal to our boss, and then our boss has a God. You know what I mean? And they are encouraged to embrace that, and I can see how, like, over time, that would have its own growth factor. And I see China doing that. I see Muslims doing that. I don't see us doing that as a Christian body. I mean, I see there are some Christian businesses out there, but I don't see like the large scale investment that could happen.
I think that it does exist out there. I think in America, because this, you know, you have an Antichrist spirit in America. You can be anything you want, but not a Christian. You know, you can talk about anything you want, but not Christianity. And it's because there's power in that name. There's power in the gospel. And we were talking about, with Cambodia being a communist country, there's a window there. And we were talking about, you know, the outreach that One Hope had been doing there. And they had shared with us that while it's open, because to your point, the church has been asleep.
Yeah.
The church has been asleep at the wheel, so other areas have been able to advance because there was no power. But we know that we serve a God who's got the name above all names, and all power and authority is given unto him, and every knee will one day bow. You know, we know that. So what we're tasked with is bringing that to a place that they need to be introduced to the one true living God. They need to be introduced to a God who loves them, is for them, not against them. That he's merciful and full of loving kindness, and not wanting to whack you out of the universe for a mistake you made. Not wanting to be, you know, I mean, he has feelings, and he's hurt when he sees his people drift away, or when he says it's not his will that anyone should even perish. You know, but he doesn't force it upon us, but yet it's getting them introduced and getting them to have an encounter with the presence of God and the person, you know, of Jesus. I mean, that he's real. We, you know, a mixture of Hinduism and Buddhism, primarily Buddhism, exists in Cambodia.
Right.
And we would see a lot of people with these little red strings around their wrists, around their waists, around their ankles, and with necklaces. And what those are is every heart has got eternity placed in it. It says this in Ecclesiastes. And it's a longing for a sense of purpose that only God himself can fill. And so they're seeking for that peace.
It's that emptiness that we have from the separation of God, because until we have Jesus to fill that hole,
exactly,
it's an emptiness, and they people try to fill it with everything. I mean, they try to fill it with drugs, they try to fill it with whatever. You know what I mean? Some people try to fill it with food. You know what I mean? So.
Sometimes we'll be talking to people and they're into their sin. They don't want to receive Jesus. Now tell them there's pleasure in sin for a season, but there's a bad future. It's not only not a future, it's a bad future.
Yeah. I tend to disarm the whole sin conversation every chance I get. And I say, you know what? Stop worrying about your sin. That's why Jesus came. You know what I mean? Don't focus on your sin, because that becomes your idol. Focus on Jesus. Yeah. Because if you focus on your sin, if you focus on the sin is the idol. And
it's almost like saying you're going on a diet, then you just focus on food.
Right. Yeah. But if you put your attention to Jesus, right, everything else falls away as the Spirit works in your life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
He starts changing the desires of your heart. When you start delighting in the Lord, He'll change the desires of your heart. And then you'll start desiring things of God.
Right.
But over in Cambodia, as I was saying, so they've got this mixture there, and they'll go to the temples to get a blessing, but it's not a blessing. These little bracelets, they're chains that bind them. And then they start to get harassed by demonic spirits. And they start getting sickness and maladies that, we don't know what this is. And you'd see the people come to the church and they would come up for healing. And you'd pray and you could feel the power of God there. You could feel Him wanting to heal, but there was something blocking. But as soon as you'd start to look and you'd see all these strings, you'd say, okay, you got to cut them off. And as soon as they would cut them off, the healing would come and they'd be instantly healed. And we ministered, we were taken to this one house. The mother and the aunt and the grandmother had received Jesus, so they were Christian. And they were praying for the man who owned the house, one of their sons. And we ended up ministering with him, and lo and behold, you saw this with your own eyes, when he got set free from the demons that possessed him. You saw them lift. You saw his countenance change. He clipped off all of his little strings, the chains that bind him. And then it goes even better. We were going to leave, and he goes, no, come back here. And our interpreter said he had these high altars in his house with all of the things serving the false gods. He said he wanted them taken down. And Pastor West is like 6'3", so he was able to reach up and take some of this stuff down. And then they brought him a big mallet, and they had him hammer the whole thing down. Then they put it in a pile, and then they burned it. And
they burned it in their front yard right in front of everybody, and then some of the neighbors started coming to church.
Yep. Nice. And then coming in because they saw a transformation in this man. And I think how many things in our lives, we were talking a little earlier about it, about selfishness, how many things in our lives, should we be bringing and burning? I've gone over the missions work that I've done over the past 25 years, and where there's parts that I was thinking, I was so great, I did this, I did that, and in my prayer time and reflection time, 25 years later, the Lord was showing me, hey, when this was, you thought, you were doing so well, there was a little self-interest in there, and showing me that. It's like peeling the onion and saying, get me down to the core, which is just having a heart just after what you want done. It's not about my comfort over there. It's not about what I can get. It's literally about what we can get to the people so that they really do see that there's a good and loving God. And that's the bottom line, because the identity thief, who is Satan, has come to get people to think that sickness and disease come from God. Not true. That bondage and lack comes from God. Not true. That the world's problems, the weather, and all of the destructiveness is from God. Not true. It's not true. Jesus says He came to give life and give it abundantly. So there's an abundance there, but what do? Do you hoard up? Jesus taught the parable of the rich man who built the barns.
Right.
And he just stacked it all there, and, moth and worms will eat it away. But it's got to go out. And the more you can give out, the more you will increase by just listening to what the Lord has and saying, okay.
I think the most misunderstood parable that Jesus probably did is he talks about the talons. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, here's 10 for you, and then here's 5 for you, and here's 3 for you. When are you gonna go do with it? You know what I mean? And everybody's all like, oh, that's about making money. You know, God gives you money, you gotta go make money. You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, that's about God giving you gifts. And what are you doing with your gifts? Yeah, sometimes that gift is being able to make money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it is not about making more for you. It's about making more for God, because God gave it to you to make more for Him.
Yeah. And you can even be selfish with that and say, you know, the talents is to bring glory, because our purpose here on this earth, our purpose is to bring glory to the Father. You know, and Jesus even talked about letting them see their good works.
Yeah.
So that your Father in heaven is glorified. But your talents, you know, it'd be a shame where God gives you the vision for this show, and you've got a talent for media and a talent for the marketing. And it would be shameful if you just sat at home and said, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, this is a talent, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I could have easily just said, you know what, I don't have enough money to make it happen, so I'm not going to do it. It's like or the money hasn't been donated yet, so I can't do it. You know what I mean? Instead of just saying, okay, God, you said do this, I'm going to do this the best that I can with what I can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, and you know, the truth of the matter is, yeah, we have a hard time raising money. You know, I mean, I have the hardest time. That is like, it's not my skill set. Fundraising is not my skill set. I'm trying to learn, you know what I mean? Trying to make the connections, trying to do the networking. And the thing I got most out of that was an education on how people are more talk than they are walk when it comes to God.
I think the disconnect comes with them really looking at, am I funding Drew and radical Christianity, or am I partnering with God? Because that was the big paradigm shift for me, and not looking at people as the source. God is the source, and there's many channels. And 25 years ago, when I started doing foreign missions, the same place, I had a really difficult time asking people for that support to get us to places. And then he said, put the vision in front of them. I will tap the hearts.
Right, and I think God's got a plan, and I think that there's this whole development process that I don't understand yet. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That eventually, like after 10 years from now, after everything's done, you know what I mean, and I can look back and be like, oh, okay, now I see what you had in mind. You know what I mean? Like how kind of works, right? But like right now, it's like this big challenge. But the education I'm getting is the reality of the church itself is still sick. It's not just the individual, the church, the body of Christ that we here on earth. We have a sickness, which is the lust for money and power. It is still a huge sickness in the church, and it's gotten a lot, I don't want to say worse, but with everything you're bombarded with. Mm-hmm. Everything around you that you're bombarded with. But it's to understand too that God wants you to get seed to the sower. He says, I'll give seed to the sower, and increase comes from sowing. Well, I think that people don't think about it as God's money.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
They think, 10% of it's God's money. You know what I mean? Like at the best. At the very least. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like, but it's all God's money. Yeah. And it's all my time is God's time. You know what I mean? Yeah. He lets me have some of it for myself. God blesses me with His time that He's given me. Some of it He lets me spend with my girlfriend, which is awesome. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the truth of the matter is, when God says, "Hey, I need you now," you should be saying yes.
That's this one here.
Yeah, and time's going to go by whether we're doing what we're supposed to or not. And then one of the big messages we have to people is that, if you're an introvert, praise God. God can use you. Mm-hmm. Tell them, hey, can I tell you about Jesus? If they say no, say, well, I don't want to talk to you anyway.
Yeah, but it is, and it does get a little. You can get complacent in your faith, but it's when you give out and you give out and you give out. And, and I'll go back to this, and people say, well, this is because you guys are evangelists. Sharing your faith is the greatest miracle you can do, because you can get your sight back, go to hell. You can be lame and walk and still go to hell. You can be deaf and get your hearing back and still go to hell. But eternal life is the only, getting salvation is the only eternal miracle that has to be on this side. Because you can be blind and go to heaven and you're going to have your sight. You can be deaf and go to heaven and you're going to be able to hear. You'll be able to walk. Everything's going to be perfect. But in the one thing that God needs, and the heartbeat of the Father is the souls. Is the souls. So whether it's you're going out, and as we continue to do ministry, we say, hey, oh, that's not for me to share the gospel. Well, come and pray then. Come and praise, come and stand, come and do, come and see. Because when you see the miracle of salvation, it does something to you, because there is a transformation. I actually had jury duty this week, and I was concerned that I wouldn't be here today. But I wasn't selected. They sat a jury yesterday, and I was just like, oh boy, Frank will be on his own. Probably better, because then I wouldn't talk all the time. But I was sitting, and I had a girl to the right and a girl to the left of me. And at various different times, I just had a conversation with them. And then the girl to the right, she was really young. She'd never, she was a little apprehensive about this, kind of walked her through, said it's no big deal. And then ended up talking with her about her 2 kids, very young, has 2 kids. And then started talking to her about a plan for her life and introduced her to Jesus. And she was really happy about it. Then the girl to my left, the lady, actually, she wasn't young. The one to my right was a young girl. Then the lady to my left, after we got all done and we were all dismissed, I just turned to her and I said, can I ask you a personal question? Has anybody ever told you that God loves you and has a plan for your life? She's busting out in tears, and she goes, you don't know how much I need to hear that there is this plan for my life. End up talking to her for a while. Well, one of the books I read in the 5 hours I was there was What to Do in Your Darkest Hour. And I just thought, well, no wonder why. That it's a smaller book. And I said, you know what, you can have this. I read a lot of books. I audit a lot of things. It's all scripture based, so that the well in me continues to grow deeper, so that the circumstances that are put in front of me, I can minister out of. Yeah. So end up giving her the book, end up praying with her to receive Jesus. There was some follow-up I gave her, and, I'm like, okay, so if this was my purpose today, was to sit here to bring these 2 into the kingdom of God, to get them introduced to a loving Father, and being right standing through Jesus, then that was time well spent.
When God is looking for people to put in those positions at those times, He goes to the ones that have been blessed with the gifts to do so. And I want to say that, you know what, it is so awesome that you guys are always willing. And Frank is more than just willing. Frank's aggressive.
Yeah, we're going to get you out with us. We're going to so that you can see that it's a ministry that's born out of a love, and really it's the love and a heart for people. We were with another ministry, Feed My Sheep, down in Lancaster. We're doing some food feeding down there that will go out to the Eaton fires in Altadena and stuff like that. And we were working with a store and to purchase the food down there, and it. I just said you could see the enemy just pushing and pushing and pushing, not wanting this to go out. But then after everything was all done, the supervisor we were working with to order the food, I shared with her, and the pastor from down there, and Pastor Bruce was standing next to me, and as I shared the gospel to her again, she just shook her head. She says, I have been going through so much right now. I just really need this.
Yeah.
And end up sharing with her and praying with her again, saying, here's the opportunity that's in front, and not wasting the opportunity, but having, ready to give an account. I know, and Frank does that, he's day in, day out. I know we've got our Tuesday night ministry that's
Frank does it always. Anytime he sees somebody he hasn't talked to yet, he's all like,
And
do you know hope we're going to heaven?
To him again.
Same opening line, the practice scenario. It's great. It's great. We are so out of time.
Oh my goodness.
Literally, we're way over. But I just want to say, I think that what you guys are doing is always awesome. I love you guys. I love having you on the show. It was awesome having you guys sit at my table during during at our table during the breakfast. You know what I mean? That was great.
Yeah.
You know?
Thank you for having us there.
No, it was great. I mean, you guys, it was great having you at the table. You know what I mean? It was fantastic. We had a really eclectic table, and it was awesome.
Yeah, wonderful people.
You know, and I just want to say that that what you guys are doing for the kingdom is super impressive. You know what I mean? And I know that you guys are not doing this to serve yourselves. You guys are just like servants of God. And as we say on Radical Christianity, you guys are definitely rad for Christ.
Yes,
You're definitely fired up for Jesus. And we love to see that here. God bless you.
Thank you, Drew. God bless you too.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today on Radical Christianity. I would like to point out that we didn't mention this in the interview, but in Cambodia, 1,017 people accepted Jesus Christ during their trip to the missions. And I think that's an important point. We didn't cover that, but so much other things. I just wanted you to know that God is working through us, working through them, working in Cambodia. He is at work. Now, if God's working on you right now, I kind of want to talk to you about that, right? So if you're feeling that tug in your heart, it's really easy to do something about that. All you got to do is say yes to God. Say yes to Jesus. It's super simple, right? You can just say, I'm in, and then start living that way. Because in Romans 10:9, it says that if you declare with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you'll be saved. Very simple process, right? And if you need more, just talk to Jesus. Just say, Jesus, I need you. Come into my life and turn me into the person that you designed me to be. It's super simple. And I encourage you to do that. And if you have questions, you need to reach out to us. We're happy to help you understand what's going on, right? And if you did say that prayer while watching the show or made a commitment watching the show or a rerun of the show or something like that, we would love to know about it. Just go to our website, radforchrist.com. That's RAD4Christ.com. And we have a form there called Got Saved. If you fill out that form, I can send you a Bible and a little gift to let you know that we are excited that you have joined the family of God. We also have an Ask a Question form. So if you have a question about the show, the Bible, our staff, our guests, your math homework, whatever it is, ask us, and we would love to be able to try and help you with that. Also, we have a prayer request form. So if you have something that you need prayer for, please let us know so that we can pray for what you have needs. Okay, and I want you to understand that's because we are here to serve. And this is the most important part of all. And that's Jesus Christ loves you. And so do I. Thank you for watching Radical Christianity. We will see you next week.
And I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not me. Even if nobody else believes, I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me.